Priority Health in 2017 and took part in high-level discussions about whether to cover what was then a newly FDA-approved cancer treatment, the same one Van Patten would later desperately need.
I mean, in real terms, this could buy someone months or even years of life.
Potentially, sure. In my 20-plus years of doing this looked like a substantial improvement over the existing alternatives for patients who really had no other treatment options.
The treatment is known as CAR T-cell therapy. It involves collecting a cancer patient's own immune cells, genetically modifying them, and then putting them back into the body to fight the disease. But Fox said leadership at Priority Health wasn't focused on what this treatment could mean for patients, but on the costs.
There were estimates that the cost of a hospitalization and the drug was going to be $1 million or more. There were lots of dollars at stake here.
Reporters from ProPublica spoke to other former employees of Priority Health who confirmed Fox's account. Internal emails show that for months, Fox did urge his fellow executives to cover the therapy, writing in August of 2018 that because of the prevailing medical evidence, we recognize we have to cover these. And again in January of 2019, he wrote, "The drug makers say we're the only regional or national health plan not covering."
Fox told executives here at Priority Health that the therapy could be a game changer for patients. He also suspected that the Michigan state mandate may actually require the company to cover it.
There's a state mandate that was passed in 1989 that said that health plans have to cover all FDA-approved cancer drugs.
Emails reveal Priority Health thought they had found a way to get out of covering it. When Fox asked the legal department to weigh in on whether the treatment needed to be covered under Michigan law, a Priority Health senior counsel responded that if their company called it a gene therapy instead of a cancer drug, they would have a defendable position not to have to legally provide coverage under Michigan law.
Our position as a health plan was that this wasn't a drug. The FDA had denoted it as a gene and cellular therapy, and therefore we weren't required under the state mandate to cover these CAR T therapies.
Those very words would later haunt Forrest Van Patten's family. In February of 2020, when he received his denial letter from Priority Health, it said, "Gene therapy intended to restore defective or insufficient structural or functional proteins is not a covered service. We are not able to approve this request."
It really was the price tag, really was the money.
Is there any other reason? I think the scientific evidence supported it. If you can think of another reason besides the money, I can't.
Fox left Priority Health in 2019 frustrated, he said, by its ongoing refusal to cover CAR T therapy and by putting profits over patients. The company provided this statement to Scripps News and ProPublica, explaining its decision not to cover the therapy, writing, "When the FDA first approved CAR T-cell therapy, there was a lack of consensus in the medical community regarding the treatment. Major life-threatening complications and side effects were common, with a high rate of relapse." But Fox told us the safety and efficacy of this treatment wasn't the key factor in the decision.
The reality is we weren't having those discussions. We were having discussions about what the cost of these treatments were. It was FDA approved. It was for cancer therapy. It was in the National Comprehensive Cancer Network guidelines, which means that there was uniform consensus that this was an appropriate treatment. The decision not to cover violated all those principles.
State insurance regulators across the country have authority to investigate cases like Forrest Van Patten's, where insurance companies appear to violate state law. But it seldom happens. In Michigan, where coverage of cancer treatments has been mandated for 34 years, not once has an insurance company been cited for violating the law.
Yeah, these are more recent pictures.
For Betty Van Patten and her children, Madison and Donovan, their hope in telling this story is to alert other families about state laws designed to protect them so they can try to fight back before it's too late.
We're just a small family of 4 in a little bitty village, but it's happening across the country, and nobody should go through this.
Priority Health tells us it now covers the cancer treatment that Forrest so desperately needed. Betty just wishes that decision had come much sooner.
We joked about we were going to sit on the rocking chairs, and we're just going to sit there and be grumpy old people on the front porch together. And I don't have that. My kids didn't have their dad at their wedding. My daughter didn't get her dance with her daddy. I lost so much.
We reached out to Michigan state insurance regulators to find out if gene and cellular therapies should be covered under that state mandate. We tried hard to get a direct answer, but they simply told us that coverage for cancer is highly complex, and these decisions are typically determined about coverage when there has been a complaint. Guys?
Yeah, wow, that's just so heartbreaking. Katie, thank you. And tell me, what's the story with Michigan? They really couldn't tell you whether this should have been covered under the law?
Well, we firmly sought to get a yes or no answer, but we could not get them to commit to whether or not this should definitively be covered by that mandate. What we do know is that the FDA, at least since 2017, has classified gene and cellular therapies as a drug.
Katie, I'm curious what we know about this treatment and if it could have really helped Van Patten had he received it in time.
It's tough to know exactly what would have happened. What we do know is that his doctors were optimistic this was his only path towards survival. We also know that the studies surrounding these drugs basically had some very positive results. We know at least one recent study showed that 43% of the patients who received these treatments lived 5 years past the study. The Van Patten family says they would have settled for just a few more days with Forrest.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts to this story. That's Katie Beck with Scripps News reporting for us tonight. We appreciate your time.
Taking a live look, downtown Grand Rapids now. Firearm deer season began this morning, and it looks like hunters got a sunny one, though I know they prefer sometimes really cold weather outside.
Yeah, it's
even snow.
Nice for everyone else to enjoy this, but not the people who treat this like a holiday today, Isabella.
Not at all. And something else that is pivotal to hunters would be wind speed, wind direction. And that also hasn't been very helpful for them either, with some very strong winds that we've been experiencing the last 24 hours. Not to mention, though, take a look at this sunset. Absolutely beautiful in South Haven so far this evening. Lots of orange in the sky. The waves are starting to calm as a lot of those winds start to calm as well. Temperatures, they're starting to drop, but most of which are in those 50s and 60s, significantly warmer than what we tend to see on average. And we will continue to be warm as we head into tomorrow as well. Those winds, again, not necessarily helping out those hunters out there. They're starting to calm so far this evening, but earlier today, most of them reaching between about 5 to 15, even 20 miles an hour at times. And that's actually going to be the case once again tomorrow. So for all of you out there, I will give you an hour-by-hour update on what those winds will look like. However, satellite and radar this evening, still pretty calm, quiet, and collected. We're going to see clear skies as we enter the rest of this evening. And if we take a zoom out, we can see that most of the upper Midwest is also pretty clear, which is going to leave us with clear skies for tonight and then clear skies for Thursday. Over the next couple of hours, we'll have those clear skies. Temperatures starting to fall all the way back down into the 40s. It'll be slightly breezy in some spots as the winds start to die down, but they will kick up as early as tomorrow. Our sunset is pretty much in just a couple of minutes at 5:19 this evening. And over the next couple of days, we can expect to see those temperatures slowly but surely drop by tomorrow, mainly in the 60s, so another warmer day. But as we're making our way into Friday, those temperatures will fall as a cold front sweeps on through, bringing chances for rain. And then by the weekend, we're looking a lot cooler. I'll break down all the details in my full forecast coming up.
The Ottawa County Sheriff's Office is still on scene after a woman was killed in a crash involving a semi. It happened just after 3 o'clock in Holland Township, where the westbound I-196 off-ramp meets Adams Street. The Sheriff's Office says the light was flashing red in all directions. The semi was continuing off the ramp and onto Adams when the woman hit the truck's trailer. We're told the 34-year-old died at the scene. Her name hasn't been released, but we do know she's from Hudsonville. The driver of the semi was not hurt.
Court documents giving us new insight on how a Kalamazoo man died. The body of Heriberto Contreras was found Sunday morning on East Crosstown Parkway near Pitcher. This is an area that is frequented by the unhoused community. And court documents say the 60-year-old was under 3 blankets with a stab wound to his chest and was pronounced dead shortly after that. Investigators reportedly interviewed a woman who directed them to the suspect, Jason Blau. And during the police interview, detectives say Blau told them he believed he stabbed Contreras, which caused his death. Officers did find a knife in Blau's tent, stained with blood. The 40-year-old was arraigned yesterday on 1 count of open murder. Bond was denied.
The outcome of the tentative contract between General Motors and the UAW is still up in the air. The Associated Press has reported that the vote appears too close to call. The union hasn't posted the final count yet, but this week, workers at several large GM factories turned down the deal. That includes locals in Flint and Lansing. Local union officials say longtime workers there were unhappy that they didn't get larger pay raises like newer workers. They also wanted a larger pension increase. It's not clear what will happen if the contract is voted down, but local union officials don't expect an immediate walkout. Meanwhile, voting continues among Ford workers. The deal is currently passing with 66% of members voting yes. For Jeep maker Stellantis, at last check, 79% have voted in favor, but many large factories have yet to finish their votes.
Here's what we're working on for Fox 17 News at 5.
Well, there's not a sidewalk in Martin that doesn't sport some Clipper pride. How the small town is paying for the football team's trip to the state championship in the Upper Peninsula.
Next week is a home game for us. You realize that? We've already been there, okay? Next week's a home game for us.
The Martin Clippers are going back to the ship trying to win a second straight state title. But before the 8-player football team, the cheerleaders and the band step foot on the Upper Peninsula field, they got to get there.
Yeah, Fox 17's Sam Lancer sat down in the Clippers Cafe where the money made tonight off of spaghetti and tomato sauce will pay for a portion of the trip.
There's around 400 people living in the town of Martin, and it's about a 400-mile drive to the city of Marquette, where the state championship game will be played this Saturday. But take a look inside the Clipper Cafe. Take a look at its walls, and you'll see that it's the small towns that really have the team spirit.
I think it's going to go really well. I know we're going to be packed tonight. I know we're going to be packed. But it's going to be worth it. And hopefully we raise as much as we did last year, because it helped out a lot.
Tonight's special, spaghetti, with a side of Clipper pride.
I don't know, a lot of people really get into football, especially in this town. And it means a lot to people. And I think it's really cool to watch them go to state 2 years in a row, which hasn't happened in a long time. My husband was telling me that when he went to school, they were never that close to making it to state.
It's back-to-back shots at the state title for Martin and back-to-back fundraisers at the cafe.
We don't keep any of the money. All of the money goes for the football team, the band, the cheerleaders.